Agile training, check. Assessments, check. Daily stand-up, check. Ladies and gentlemen, are you using checklists to gauge the progress of your Agile transformation? And yet at the same time, you're not quite sure if you're making progress? If these ring true to you, then I recommend the following video. Hello and welcome to Agile Outcomes. I'm your host, Daniel Spencer. Today we're going to talk about checklist agility versus true transformation. So question for you guys. Do you struggle to get results even when everyone has been trained? Does this sound familiar? You reach the tipping point, then you decide, hey, call to action. We're going to be agile. So we train the engineers, we launch agile teams, we muddle through a series of sprints, we conduct assessments, then we ask ourselves, is there improvement? Well, Daniel, hang on. So our first sprint, we just got trained. It's going to be a little rough. So rinse and repeat. We retrain the engineers, plus give them some coaching. We relaunched agile teams, and now we emphasize standards. Hey, we need to be consistent, guys. We muddle through another series of sprints, and then we conduct assessments again. Any improvement? Still early, hard to tell. If this sounds familiar, you're probably frustrated. And there's good reason for frustration. It's a lot of change. There's a lot of disruption. You're changing ways of working, learning agile tools, getting training, going through all these new events. This should be working, right? If this is true for you, chances are you're living in something that I call checklist agility. In other words, you're ticking all the boxes. We've got the training, tick. We've got the stand-ups, tick. We've got the assessments, tick. We've got agile artifacts, stories, and features, tick, tick, tick. And yet it's not working. If this is the case, what's that missing piece of the puzzle? Some key ingredients that might help here is the why. Why are we doing this? How do we even get the idea of having an agile transformation? And then what are we expecting? If we become agile, what's that going to look like? And then who's transforming? Is it just the software engineers? Is it also the testers? Is it also the analysts? Is it also the database administrators? Is it also who's all involved? This is a really good question. And then lastly, how will we know when it's working? What could we point to and say, there, that's something we never had before? So for the why, what we want to do is look at the vision and outcomes. Where do we see this going? What is this new land of Agile that we're going to on our Agile journey? And what are the specific outcomes we're hoping to attain? Then for who's transforming, obviously we're going to have these agile teams, but who's on the teams? Again, is it just software, or is it software plus testing or quality, if those are different groups in your organization, or the analysts, like we said, or database or database administrators or project managers? Really, these are different groups that sometimes people don't consider. And then, of course, they report up to their managers. So are their managers transforming? And then, ultimately, do you have executive support? Now, there ought to be at least a sponsoring executive for an agile transformation to lend it the gravitas, to give it support. And how will we know it's working? We can have leading indicators. We can have specific things we're looking to change or looking to improve. And that's on a cadence, right? So at the end of each sprint, at the end of a PI, if you're practicing scaled agile. So all this leads to Daniel's cheat sheet for agile change. Number 1, set the vision and outcomes. We just covered that. Number 2, develop teamwork above the teams. Now, scaled agile has a good example of this. If you look at the agile release train, there's an RTE, there's program management, there's system architecture engineering. This trio is actually a combination of different domains and different groups, often different departments, that provide their unique voices. And when you bring them together, it's a powerful combination. Now, this is all happening above the Scrum teams, right? So now the Scrum teams are seeing this cooperative behavior, this teamwork above their level, which helps tremendously to model the behavior that they need to be practicing themselves. Same thing for the Lean Agile Center of Excellence. Hopefully you have different groups, maybe even different divisions, different departments being represented in the LACE that again models the teamwork that should be happening throughout your Agile release train or across your Scrum teams. Having this demonstrated above the teams is going to set the precedent for teamwork within the teams. Next is scale incrementally. I can't emphasize this point enough. So just like you have a minimum viable product or a minimum marketable feature to prove out product ideas, we need to do the same with our teams. Have a couple teams, start going agile, and get the feedback. Note what's working. Note what's sticking, what's not, or what's problematic, what needs to be reinterpreted for the context or domain that you're in. This is very important. Once you iron that out with a few teams, then you can start to scale and say, okay, now we have some patterns that we want to repeat. We have some success patterns. That's how you scale it. Next is make coaching relevant. Now, for me, I'm an Agile coach. When I'm working with a new team, I might be covering fundamentals like, okay, what's a good user story? How do you size it? How many stories can you take in a sprint? But if it's a more advanced team, you might be looking at things like dependencies. You might be looking at swarming and collaborating better to get to done. Definition of done. You might be looking at more releasable product or frequent releases. You might be looking at value, business value. So these are all things that make coaching relevant. Next is allow the teams to own it. So once the decision's made to go agile, the next step, which is sometimes difficult, is giving the teams enough space and autonomy to actually sign up for which stories they can complete, agree to commit, and then own that deliverable. And so that's going to be the proving ground for the next is now gaining leadership buy-in. Once the teams are proving themselves, then you want to solicit and evangelize across the different silos, across the different departments and say, hey, we have a sponsoring executive, but we really need to bring in the other leaders, the other executives from those different groups and make this a business agility play. That's what makes it a transformation. When it goes beyond just a couple of engineers in silos to the broader organization. So for any of you who have the background, this might sound familiar. If you look at Kotter's 8-step change process, you see the areas that I've put on the screen highlighted that correlate to Kotter's process on the right. There you have it. Takeaways: beware of checklist agility. It can get you to a frustrating place. And then use my Agile cheat sheet to help you get out of it. The goal being real transformation. All right, that's it. Your feedback is welcome. Any comments and likes would be much appreciated. I'm Daniel Spencer. This has been Agile Outcomes.